Hello, everybody. Welcome to the book club. New comic book day was yesterday. I'm sorry that we're one day late. You can blame me completely. This is John's Comics with Kids. I still have a kid bouncing around here. But today we're talking about Middlewest 2, and I've got two awesome guests. My co-host, as usual, Mr. Alec at White Whale Comics is here.
Hello, everyone. I do blame you completely, and I don't have kids.
And
that's how you can tell us apart.
Our guest tonight is Eryn Evans from the Geek Street 101 podcast, and you've probably seen her on Comic Tom's channel. They live streamed just yesterday. So welcome, Eryn.
Yeah, I hope this one goes a little bit better. The lighting's a lot better today. And we're still having some sound issues, but it's going to be okay. Yeah. And
well,
yeah,
I'm just waiting for Tom to start changing the lighting behind you. Just like all of a sudden it'll go green.
He's like, I feel like anytime we're getting set up, it's like me and Ryan are just sitting there and Tom's just like hovering around us, like helicopter parenting us. And we're just like.
I always try to send Tom little texts or comments. It turned green? Oh. I always tell Ryan, like, okay, now's the moment when you make a creepy face. Just sit in the back and be creepy as if you're looking over Tom's shoulder. So we are here to chat for the first time ever about a book number 2. All of the books we've done up to now have been first issue, issue 1s. And this is the first time we've really felt like this was a worthy chance to really enjoy a number 2. Oh, wow, that sounded horrible. There's no redos when you do this live. No. Yeah. I am not going to say that again. But a chance to really
continue. We have 2 chances to say it.
Alec, you take over. Alec,
sure, great. Number 2s are something that, you know, you sometimes have to participate in because you've read a number 1 and you want to see where the story goes. That's what you meant, right? And conveniently, there weren't very many number 1s coming out this week that we were interested in. So I think it was a bit of kismet.
Yeah, and we had felt pretty strongly that there was a lot of potential in book number 1, that the world was quite unique, that there were a lot of ways that it could go, and we had a lot of real great discussion about the different points that were not explained. You know, what are these bottles of liquid that are attached everywhere? Can everybody see these animals? Like, there was no reference in the first book. Could you even see the fox that's running around with Abel? Nobody references it. So is it in his mind? Is it real? And a lot of that got answered in this particular second issue. But I felt like there was a lot of potential for what could be a unique universe. Eryn, you had a chance to read book 1. We chatted a little bit about it. I know that you referenced a few thoughts you had. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, book 1 was really confusing to me for like the things that you brought up. I was in the same boat where I was like, what is this universe? Like, because like, you know, whenever you enter a new universe, you're like, okay, what's allowed here? Right? Do animals talk? Or
yeah, what are the
like,
rules? Is
it dystopian? Like, you're trying to like understand just like, yeah, exactly. What are the rules? Like, what's going on? So I was like on the fence about the first one. I thought it was, I felt it was really like Wizard of Ozzy, like very like standard hero's tale initiation, right? Like it dove right into like he's starting his adventure. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was a little too cliche. Like, I was like, obviously this is anticipated. But I think that overall, like this, like after reading the second one, I have a lot more good to say about the first one. Like, I thought it set it up really well.
Nice. Really quickly, Carlito just said, spoilers, I'm out, bye fam. Yes, this is a full spoiler podcast. So if you have not read it and care to, I apologize. Catch it on the replay if you read it.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of our show. We really do like to get into a book right at that first day when you first buy it, and then enjoy that book and have a debate. Whether you love it or not, it's just part of the enjoyment of a book club, you know?
So yeah, to your point, some stuff got answered in this second issue. Definitely other people can see the fox, and he is real and he talks.
Yeah, that happened right away, and I gotta say, a little disappointed that it was answered so nonchalantly, because I felt like they really went out of their way not to answer it in the first book. Like, it seemed really like nobody spoke to the fox.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like right away everybody's talking to the fox like it was normal.
That's
I
true.
think that I felt like they built something up that ended up being completely worthless.
Yeah, but we also may have been reading way too much into it, and they didn't think that close or that deeply about it. And there's like, oh yeah, the fox talks, and the animals are the thing in this world, and they didn't really put together that the way they wrote it. It was,
that there could be another way to look at it, right?
Yeah, I think I err on more on that side. That is probably like they weren't trying to be all cryptic. Like they were just like, yeah, animals talk. Like that's this universe.
For this issue, I felt the pacing was much. I don't know, like it moved way faster. I felt like, despite the fact that the first issue clearly threw a lot at you, I felt like it actually kind of was.
I think the first one, it was like that escalated quickly. Like,
sure.
Like it was like slow story, and then all of a sudden there's this giant tornado, and like or your dad just turned into a tornado, and like that's terrifying.
Right.
But like this, it was like here's this sequence, and then this sequence, and then this sequence. Like it was definitely a lot faster paced.
I almost wish like the whole issue had been the fight on the train, and it ended up with him meeting the wizard. The wizard, which I want to talk about that, but we don't have to, not quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I felt like this was it felt to me like a way more exposition heavy book.
I love it, my exposition.
It was like, except for that bit on the train at the beginning, the rest was just he's talking to the wizard and then he decides to run away. Like there's not a whole lot of story really happening here. So for me, the pacing was uneven, I guess I would say, because it just wasn't. It didn't really seem like it was a contained piece. It was definitely a fragment of a larger story. Whereas the first one was definitely like it had a beginning, middle, end of a storyline. Like Eryn's saying, a classic hero story kind of thing was going on there. So for me, I still really dug the world, and obviously this creepy owl character. Oh, now Charlie's gonna be excited that Rainbow's making an appearance.
He started hollering, and I'm like, I have to pick him up.
This is the first crossover appearance of Rainbow.
Oh. Oh, yeah.
Put that on the CGC slab.
I liked the owl character, and I liked some of the animals they show you. The buku or whatever that he calls to, that looks like this weird rabbit, fat rabbit. Fat rabbit.
And that didn't make any sense to me, like why they were there. Like, were they just trying to show the oddities of the world? Like these
I think so.
Like just to show like how extravagant some of like the villains could be potentially.
Well, they did it with the mouse at the very beginning. So like the very first page even had the mouse with seemingly 4 eyes, right?
Yeah.
That gets snagged by the owl, which obviously like there's a metaphor there as well. And you want to know, like, is the creature he meets on the train the owl, or is the old wizard the owl? Like,
or is the owl
our character is the evil one, right?
Or is the owl the fox to someone else?
Right.
I feel like the entrance of like the first true villain, because like I feel like the dad wasn't specifically a villain. Like that was just something that happened. Like it seemed more like disease oriented or something. Like
we still don't know. Like really,
he freaked out
if it was within his control.
And I thought it was a good like. I'm really into villains. I think that if something can creep me out a little bit, I really like it. So I really like being creeped out like that. But I had like 2 immediate vibes from like the guy on the train. And like the first thing that I thought of was like a Shy Guy.
Oh,
like
from
Mario. Yeah, I don't know why, but like I was just thinking like that's just like a really creepy Shy Guy. But then I don't know if you guys, I'm always going to reference a lot of anime and a lot of video games. It's just like, that's my comfort zone. But he really reminds me of like in Full Metal Alchemist, there's like these guys that wear the suits and they're dead brothers. And he kind of looks, I don't know, he just looks like one of them, or like has that like kind of like the way he talks too, like his vernacular is really similar to that. And like, to be fair, that was like one of the scariest episodes of Full Metal Alchemist to me. So that's like where I was at for like, I don't know how many pages that is, like a fifth of the book, like 20% of it. I was just like thinking about that and being super creeped out. And like, this guy's really scary to me.
See, I went like Jim Henson, Labyrinth,
kind of,
like Dark Crystal, kind of like, that's what I got with that like beak and the skull head. Like that's,
the
I went
kind of
there.
thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Can you guys hear Rainbow? I'm gonna send him down. He's freaking out. He just wants, he just wants the love.
So the character we're talking about, for those that don't know, is this guy that, like, I guess his name, he just calls himself Caw, like C-A, like a crow sound, C-A-W.
And that's more of a Mario thing. Your name is what you sound like.
Yeah. Or Pokemon.
Yeah, that's a Pokemon thing too.
But yeah, I mean, I think like it would have been so cool to have like this big epic fight on the train. And instead it was kind of just like right when it was about to get exciting, the wizard came and just like cleaned up the mess.
Yeah,
I mean, bummed out about that.
But I think that shows like how powerful the wizard is.
Sure, and I would have been fine. I don't have a problem with him like coming in and just like sweeping him up, but like a little more suspense, I guess, in the meantime, where it's like
more dialogue, you think, or
like he, you know, the fox bites the guy, I guess, which that panel I felt was strangely drawn. I didn't get.
Yeah, it was poorly drawn and edited. I had to go and look and see, where does he bite him? Where does he get him?
So
he has skinny legs because he's a crow.
Yeah, they run away and get on the top of the train, and that's kind of exciting. And then the guy shows up again. And you're like, oh no, like what are they going to do now? And you know, the suspense they built of like the danger of being on top of the train didn't pay off because they didn't have to jump around the train.
Right. They didn't even get one car away. It seemed like, and somehow they were surrounded, which I was like, how did they get surrounded by these guys? Like they're.
Yeah, it was so quick. They ran like this, and oh.
That's pretty fast. Well, maybe the crow can fly.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The crow flies.
Did you fly?
Maybe yeah, and obviously that rescue moment obviously recalls a lot of great modern wizards. I know that you've mentioned the Wizard of Oz, Eryn, which was a great comment that I think we only lightly even touched on, if we did it at all, in our first breakdown. It's a great call. And then for me, this is the Obi-Wan moment, right? When the Sand People have Luke, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi shows up and scares him off.
Right.
And
that's always an old hermity guy, though. Like that's it. It's always some old hermit guy.
Yeah.
Here to save your day. Like here to start your hero's tale. Like here to really like be the quest issuer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Hagrid, if you want, from Harry Potter, right? Busting in the door and then just taking you away from a really awful, scary situation.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I do agree, Alec. I would have liked to drawn out that dramatic moment at the beginning a little more, and not necessarily end with the wizard, but perhaps end with that awesome splash page of his house.
Yeah, which was
is a great page. So he rescues the boy, and they go on this weird time traveled hike thing, and it ends though with this amazing splash page here of the house where the wizard lives, which might be one of the best drawings in both books. I don't know.
It was great.
I had such a strong response to this. Here comes video game reference number 2. This is like Fallout. It's like one of the like cities when you go up to Fallout. That's like all I could think of. So then I'm thinking I'm like, oh, this is dystopian. Like this is something that might be this universe, because like while the parts where he was in Middlewest seemed normal, like maybe Middlewest is like the Shire, where it's like it's okay, and Middlewest where the Shire is, you venture out. Heavy metaphor, here we go. Like you're doing something or going somewhere. Like that's kind of where I was at, and then this to me was like you're somewhere else. You're in that foreign area. You're entering the dystopian world potentially. Or maybe not dystopian. That's not the word I want to use over and over again. It's more like
it's a pastiche, right? It's a collage of pop culture almost. He's got so many like little bits of like junkyard elements here, and then modern elements. It's all built around nature and a sort of we mentioned Japanese anime a little bit when we were talking about it last time. The Spirited Away, Hayao Miyazaki kind of style, where all of a sudden like nature and the modern world are blended together. And this reminded me a little bit of that Totoro with the giant tree, and then all of a sudden a bus. But this bus isn't made out of a cat or whatever.
That'd be cool though.
I'm going to use a word to describe it that I don't know if it's a word, Seussian, like
Seussian?
like
Yeah.
Dr.
Oh,
Seuss.
like Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely with the lights and stuff and like all the curvatures. I can see that. Yeah, it's just God, what did I feel like I just recently was watching something where like that was like the case, like the guy like is like hoarding stuff. Like, and also like very hoarder house.
I was gonna say, was it hoarders?
Yeah.
The chat is talking a lot about Harry Potter, and
Yeah,
so
getting in some fights. I was just gonna say we should jump into the chat. We haven't said hello to anyone yet.
Oh, I don't know how to jump into the chat.
That's right.
I don't think I can see the chat.
Both getting thrown under the bus because they both apparently are noobs to Harry Potter world, and I know the boy who had 7 and I are big Harry Potter fans. So.
I wouldn't say I'm a Harry Potter noob. There's just more out there for me. Like there's like other things have definitely like touched me in a fantastical way more than Harry Potter has.
Lord of the Rings.
Exactly. They're like, maybe we should pick our favorite wizard or like discuss like the differences of wizards. And I'm like, it's gonna be Gandalf. And if someone tries to argue with me, I'll just say something mean. So I don't think we should really go there because it's Gandalf.
Yeah, it's Gandalf. So I just want to say hi to some people really quickly because we haven't done that yet today. I got issues always here. Appreciate the support. Boy who had 7. Tim Meyer, Princess Mononoke. You spelled that correctly. Nice job.
I know that was a feat in its own self.
Mononoke Hime. Necro God Comics. I think this might be your first time here. Welcome. If not, I apologize. Discovery Bay Comics. JD. Hulk
I'm going to shout out
always.
Necro God Comics. He's got a great Instagram account. You should definitely check out his Instagram account. I love that guy's IG. It is amazing.
Hulk Nuts always adding flavor to the chat. Appreciate it. Jeffrey Comic Con. Who else we got here? Did I get everyone?
Wingnuts.
Wingnuts always here. Economics and Comics.
Yeah, I saw Sick.
Mary Sickness. Jason P.
Yeah.
John's Comics with Kids is in the chat.
I try.
If I missed anyone, I apologize. But thanks everyone for joining. Oh, I clicked over the wrong thing. That really confused me.
If we're getting back into the what's his name, Jed?
Yeah.
Name it Jeb.
Wizard Jeb.
So 2 things. Can I bring up 2 quick things about Jeb?
Yes,
sure.
The wizard. So the wizard. For those that don't know, the wizard character that we're talking about, his name is Jeb.
So kind of weird that he's like, take off your shirt and let me rub some ointment on you.
Dude, yeah.
I'd be like,
right
if I were
back.
able, I'd be like,
he says yes. He agrees to it.
Yeah, like first of all, Abel is just like, yeah, I'm gonna follow you for a full day to get to your house, and then
way out in the woods.
Hi TJ
somewhere.
and Uncanny Kyle Walker. Yeah, so I'm just gonna follow you for a day. Number 1, stranger danger. Number 2, I'm gonna get to your like crazy ass home built house, and then follow you inside, and then he's gonna be like, let me rub some like stink ointment on your chest, and I'm just gonna be like, yeah, go for it.
This is how the Lovely Bones started, right?
Okay, so
spoilers for the Lovely Bones.
Okay, here's the thing though. I would inherently trust a wizard. Like if someone like saved my life like that, like I'd be like, yeah, you know what you're doing and you know what you're talking about.
Well, so, and I think that would be the only logical excuse, Eryn, is that idea that clearly in this world wizards are a known commodity, and he could recognize that this person is one of those. It's akin to being able to say, oh, this is a Jedi. Okay, yeah, I know what you're about, and I'll follow you.
But
yeah,
because he was like really in shock about his dad turning into a tornado and like just the existence of something magical on his chest. Like he was like, I don't even know what's going on. Like my dad's a tornado now. Like I don't.
Yeah, and that's the issue I've had that's the biggest for me is there's this weird line where some of the things that we as an audience would call weird, everybody's okay with.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that we as an audience would call weird, everybody's shocked by. And it's hard to know where that line is. I'm going to jump really quickly towards the end because this is in keeping with that. Right near the end, Abel's got a line where he says, I don't know. Maybe it's hard to think after sleeping about sleeping after my dad turned into a tornado monster, tried to kill me. We were almost eaten by a cannibal birdman on a train, and now I'm some hobo wizard's junkyard compound where I learned that my chest is infected and glows when I get mad.
Thanks for the recap, dude.
It's a weird thing to say. It's a weird recap, but also it's like he's listing these things like they're all bizarre when clearly like some of these things have to be somewhat normal in this crazy world we're in, right?
Yeah, your best friend's a talking fox.
Yeah.
Right?
But like that's normal.
I feel like that's something the audience should be thinking or saying, but not him.
Yeah.
Right. So
John, have you read any American Gods?
I haven't. And I saw that you've been reading the novel, which I'm really curious to hear how you're feeling about it.
It's a frustrating thing because have you read it?
The book, yes.
Yeah, so that's what I'm like halfway through it right now. The main character in that is really like that too. Like there's some crazy stuff going on around him, yet he never seems to fully, like it takes him way too long to fully be like, oh wait, this isn't normal. Like it's really weird and I don't understand, like maybe the author like is so far ahead in like where they're at that they forget that the audience is sitting there being like, what's going on?
I don't know if in American Gods, Shadow is maybe just like in denial a bit as the story progresses, where he's like, this can't really be what I think it is until like it's too late, like it's gone past the point of no return, and you're like,
right? Oh
well, clearly this is that.
So you think denial would be another theme in Middlewest? Because like I could definitely see that happening. Like if so far if I see a theme that's going on, it's definitely denial, because he shuts it down when the wizard helps him, and then
he shuts it down.
Escapes, or like doesn't escape. He wasn't trapped, but he
was he?
We don't know. Maybe he's just really good. Maybe the wizard's really bad at trapping, and he's really good at escaping. But
when the fox says like, "Oh, when you get angry, the thing gets worse," and he's like, "No, you're wrong," and he's
he's still an emotional child, though. That's the other thing. Is it's like this.
Yeah.
I could already like smell a coming of age story like all over this.
And I feel like that's the danger of writing a child, is you can't have it both ways, where they're a child and also they're like more mature than a child. You kind of have to play it realistically, and the goal is to set that tone and be consistent with it as a writer. Mm-hmm. And this did feel like there were definitely times where I heard a writer and I didn't hear Abel. So for me, the writing, at least in the large exposition section, was a little bit weaker for me than in the first issue.
Absolutely,
it seemed fairly consistent. I was willing to feel like every character was consistent. Abel wasn't as consistent as a character in this one.
Definitely.
And so my other question about it was, and you brought it up, is like the idea of the wizard. Was that established beforehand that those exist in the world? Because when he said like, "You're acting like some crazy wizard," I rolled my eyes so hard, because I was like, yeah, like as a reader, I get that he's supposed to be a wizard, but like, are you supposed to get that he like? Why would he assume that he's a wizard? He's like, cast some spells if you're a wizard.
Or even, what does that term mean in this world versus in our vernacular, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe it's one of those things where it's like wizards, like they were big a while ago, and then like now it's not as big. Like I don't know, like Full Metal Alchemist. Like alchemists used to be like, they used to be like the medicine, and then now it's like not.
Or some people in the chat brought up Star Wars, like old Ben. Could you meet old Ben?
Yeah.
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. I wasn't even in the chat, but I'm like, Jedis could just like like they existed, and we're aware that they existed. We're not denying that they existed, but like that's old shit, old stuff.
Yeah.
No, curse all you want.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, Eryn, it's funny because I make jokes with Ryan about the cursing. I want to get it. I'll let you know. Like my girls have listened to Hamilton front to back.
Okay.
There's no word that is foreign to them in the dictionary anymore. Plus, they live with a dad who drives. So
okay, yeah. Yeah, I was raised by a plumber, so I have the like probably the worst potty mouth ever. So I'm sorry.
It's all right. Go for it.
So I mean, do you want to talk more about like the heart illness at all, and kind of happening to Abel? Because it seems to me like a big portion of what's happening is he's sort of being infected by his dad, right?
Puberty.
Well, yeah, but
like, I feel like it's just a puberty metaphor.
It totally is. It totally. It's the idea that he's slowly turning into a man like his dad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, that
anger,
transition is happening.
But is the sickness being an angry person like his dad is?
Well, it's a nature versus nurture, right? Did his dad beat him and cause this beast, or is it just something that was innately in him that he's always had, or is it a combination? You know?
Yeah, I mean, well, like he literally put his hand through him to create it, so I don't know, but right, is it the sort of thing where it had to be there?
Something that was already there.
Yeah, the wizard did.
Activated the genetics of, or like into that. Like that's definitely all I could think of is like he placed. Or like maybe it's some type of like symbolism for like the change. Like he was touched by his dad and then he'll never be the same kid again, right? Like you passed that threshold now where like your dad's just not your dad. Like you kind of see that maybe your dad has faults or mistakes, or he said something really, really, really unkind about his mom to him, specifically about him. So like, is that some type of symbolism? Like I passed, you crossed the line, you said something that you can't unsay, and it's like an example of those things of like when you do cross that line in a conversation or when you're talking like that and you hurt somebody too much or you say something too hurtful, they're never going to be able to forget it.
And then you leave a mark, right? There's a permanent marking, and that obviously that metaphor is pretty clear as well,
right?
But the idea that when he's angry, it starts to cover him more, that it's like spreading in some way.
So my biggest issue with this issue was that it ended exactly the same way the first one did.
Fact.
With him just like running away from somebody else back on his own, like going who knows where. That's
a theme for sure.
And so is that just like every issue he's going to run away from someone else and be like, all right, back on the road.
Yeah, because now is he going to find the crazy caravan gypsy lady and do this all over again with her?
Yeah.
Maybe.
For me, I'll tell you, like we had talked the first time through and we were talking with Matt and he was like, oh, I'm looking forward to the first appearance of Middlewest Gandalf or whatever. He was like really looking forward to Gypsy Dumbledore. And then, but when I read the first few pages and it was like the creepy owl and it was the other owl hunting the little mouse, in my head, I was thinking, oh, it'd be really, really cool if they flipped it on us and made this guy the villain, like made this guy a menace of some kind.
Sure.
And he may be.
And he may still be. But I think they blew the opportunity of having that moment and instead left him as seemingly very, hey, congenial. Hey, we'll get a nap and I'm just an old guy and I need my sleep and I'm here to help and I'm going to go to sleep. Hey, I'll show you where my house is. Look, all the animals love me. And then he's just off to bed.
Well, I think that they also showed that he's a flawed person. Like they definitely showed like he has a complicated relationship with the fortune teller. So maybe it's just like they're just introducing him as like, even though you're magical and you can do special things, you're still this person, like, you're still like a normal person or you still are flawed. So I think it was interesting that they introduced him with flaws.
Yeah. I love that.
I got it.
Says,
yeah, I was just going to say
running away from my problems for 34 years. Give the kid a break. It's only been 2 issues.
Right. I also feel like we've just been really trashing on it, but ultimately I do like it. And I didn't know that Scotty Young was even writing. I thought he was just drawing. So I was pleasantly surprised when I didn't even know about this until you guys said something. And I'm glad
Matt had said a bunch. He was like, oh gosh, we're doing a kid's book. I'm on John's Comics with kids and we're reading a kid's book. Great.
Yeah. Except the first issue is like littered with curse words and, yeah, I mean, I didn't hate the issue. I just I'm very critical. Like if you're going to publish a comic, stuff like that panel with the fox, and the art is great. Art's beautiful, but like that panel with the fox of him biting the guy. And there was another thing where like the fox switched sides and like you didn't know where he came from. It's like stuff like that. It's just like tighten it up. I know you're on a timetable and on a schedule, but like if you're going to put the time into making a comic,
Yeah, and I will agree. I thought the issue was good, and again, the art has been consistently excellent, like between these two issues. But little things like, okay, they get off the train, and the next, I just turn the page, and it's like the middle of the day, and I'm like, okay, now they're walking. I don't know what they did, and then it's like they need to walk for a day. What was Old Man doing on this train? Like it was just,
and how did they let a day pass without even a montage? You know what I mean? Like a visual
like a sun setting or something.
Yeah, like they're like, it's been a day. Like, just believe us, it's been a day. Nothing weird happened.
Which was
could have had a few panels, you know, of like a traveling.
That could have been like a whole could have been a whole story arc.
They were already on a train, so why do we need a day's walk? They were far away from wherever they wanted us to be. It's not like we know exactly in the world where they are. Like why did that day function in the story in any way?
Yeah, it didn't.
What was the wizard doing a day's trip away from his house?
Looking for Abel. I got issue said it definitely needs more Jubilee, right? Absolutely. Yeah. Everything needs more Jubilee.
I think that sometimes though they do that shocking transition just to pull you out and pull you, like, to move you through it faster. It's also, I mean, it's an artist tactic, like to give you like a shot. Like, I mean, Fiona Staples does it all the time. Like she'll leave you in a place.
That's her saga style, right?
Yeah, and then next page, she's showing you something that's a different, like it's a different emotional shock, or it's, you know, a visual like mind trick, and it takes you somewhere else. So,
and I think she does it so functionally. That it's almost like a jump cut in a movie, right? It's like a hard break to something else.
Right.
This didn't
like in the middle of a page too.
Style down.
Like it went from day to night in the middle of a page with like seemingly no reason other than to say like, hey, it's nighttime now.
And really the only point would be for us to understand that Jeb's house is one day away from the train tracks. Like, why is that? Like, whatever.
Sure.
But again, I don't want to hate on it because I do think it's still solid. I do still think this world is interesting, and there's definitely something here. I had just really hoped they were going to use that first issue as a real great springboard, and I don't think they've really found that yet.
So I think this
not all pilots are good. You know,
the pilot was great.
Yeah.
I think I enjoyed issue 1 more than this one.
Really? Go ahead.
No, please.
I like this one more because I think it helped me understand the universe a little bit more and understand the laws of it. And I think that anytime that I feel like I'm confused as a reader, I don't like it, but I also like being surprised. So like, I don't mean like I don't like the author to take me down a turn. I mean that I don't like being confused about the rules. Like I need to know the rules before I can get on board. Otherwise, I'm in a state of confusion. And so this one I feel like brought me a little more out of it, but then added confusion more to the plot. But at least at the end of this, I feel like I understand the rules of the universe a little bit more, which I have more buy-in.
Yeah. So I think this is a great transition to our debate topic, simply because I'm going to bring up something that was almost our debate topic, of comics being created for the purpose of being optioned. And I feel like the first issue seemed much more considered. Like even your criticisms are, I see where you're coming from, and but like I feel like they spent a lot more time on the details of that one, whereas this one they're like, okay, now we need to start putting out issues. I mean, maybe I'm being too harsh, but that is kind of the thought I had.
Well, I also but I can also see what Aaron's talking about as far as, you know, taking a bit of the platform they had set and expanding the universe to these creatures, to this bus house in the trees. They've definitely built on what they gave us. I'm just waiting for it to sort of congeal into something with consistency. Maybe that's what I'm talking about more.
Well, and I also think that, like, I'm sure when Scotty was like writing this, he's thinking, okay, my main audience is going to be like younger. And so maybe the buy-in's already going to be there, you know, like maybe we're just old, you know?
Oh man, I'm the oldest one here, I bet. So just
not much older than me, John.
So like maybe we're just, you know, maybe we're just the I think we're the right audience, but we also might be kind of the wrong audience, if that makes sense. Like we're the right audience in that we're here and we're open to it and we like comics and we're those people. But like, again, we're not in that mindset. We're not going through puberty. And
So
I give this, hold of us.
I'll give this to Kate and see what happens.
Yeah.
We got a lot of Jaws references suddenly in the chat. So
yeah, I saw a lot of that. And Economics and Comics is back. Sick.
You guys are young, trust me.
Yeah.
I'm aged and
aged.
I don't.
Yeah. My hairline would argue with the young comment. So let's go back to, is there any last comments that we want to make? Obviously, we only briefly touched on the gypsy lady and her function in being probably the next level in this story. Whether she's the wizard and this guy was Glinda the Good Witch or whatever, we've landed in Oz with this guy, and now maybe we're moving on towards a path to the wizard, or that she's the Wicked Witch. Who knows, right?
Sure. That's a really good take on it. I wasn't there, but I think that's likely. Or it's like maybe a little bit of both. Like maybe he's just not the hero that, you know, that you would expect him to be. Like he's still a good guy, but he's not the guy. Or not the hero, but like the wizard. Like maybe he's not the Gandalf. Maybe he's the Legolas. I don't know.
You know? And I think that's what I was looking for in this issue, was the moment when they flip a stereotype in a new direction that makes me like interested.
Yeah, like there's like not a normal archetype person. Yeah, like take the archetype and add flavor and add depth to that person that makes them more human or more relatable, or their decision making process.
Maybe he's not the Gandalf, he's the Tom Bombadil. Hashtag deep cuts.
Wow, that was a deep,
That's a deep reference, but I get you.
Yeah, I'm pumped that you did that, but I'm hoping that there's even 2 people in the chat that know what that meant.
Let's see. Because he's not a movie character. I don't even think he's in the extended cuts, right?
No, not even
reference him though. They talk about him. I think they say something about him in the movie. The Hobbits do.
So, shall we move on to our debate?
Well, do we want to mention it? I think all of us are on it. I definitely am going to get issue 3. I want to know a little bit more about this world. I'm interested enough, and the artwork is again so stunning that even if I get a little frustrated with the exposition, I'm just looking at beauty on every page.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm in it just for the art. Which I wouldn't expect with a Scotty Young author. You'd think like, oh, I'm in it for the Scotty Young art, but it's not. It's not even about that. But yeah, I would get this again. Maybe digital.
No, you just get Russ or Tom to throw it in Tom's box, right?
Yeah. The other day, John was like, well, you got to say if you add it to your pull list. And I'm like, well, I don't have a pull list because I live with Tom and Russ, so it's like I just say what I want and then it just appears. Like
that sounds magical.
Yeah,
you're the wizard
for a comic book in my life. Oh, I mean, okay, I've paid for a comic book, but not like that, like not out of a box.
5-finger discount, Eryn.
That's right. I'm just gonna read it and I'll just put it back. No, and I'm also more of a trade reader. Like I don't believe in reading issues really. Like it's like if I'm gonna read something, I'm gonna read it in a trade because I want to have the whole experience, except for Saga because I can't. I can't.
Really, trades were the original like streaming, right? You could read the entire, you could listen to the entire season in one trade instead of having to go issue and then wait a month and then get an issue.
Yeah, and more and more titles are written clearly specifically for trades now. So you read them by issue, and it's just like, well, this isn't a complete story. I need to read 6 issues to get. So might as well wait for the trade. Which is, where they're making their money because they sell them on Amazon and everything. So I don't blame you for waiting for trades because it
makes more sense.
I just
and I'm a binge reader, so if I'm going to sit down and read, like I want to read for like 8 hours.
If you're not in it for the collecting, then why would you read single issues? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think I'm not into I'm not into collecting new stuff.
Sure.
Like, and my dabble into collecting. I'm definitely more of a reader than a collector. But like my dabble into collecting is definitely more like I just like it because I like it. Like I have this Hobbit comic that's just from the like it's just a Hobbit. It's literally the Hobbit, and they did like a representation of it or a graphic novel kind of version, and I have that issue framed, and I really like it. And it's not necessarily super collectible, but like I keep it because I like it.
Yeah,
and like that's more me. Like I'm not like, oh, I want this because it's like a Grail or something. Like that's Tom.
Yeah. Is it like the closer to the time frame of the movies they made recently, or the old animated movies they made?
The old one. It's old.
Nice.
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of it later. I'll post on Instagram.
Awesome. So yeah, that brings us to our discussion topic for this particular episode. We went around on a few different things for indie comics, and I don't remember if it was Eryn or Alec threw out this idea of it wasn't me. It was the idea of, can we still consider Image to be an indie comic book company? Is there any reason why you would feel like it is or is not an indie company?
So I vote that yes, it is. So my knee jerk is like, okay, so just because I don't think that the word indie and unsuccessful need to be married to each other. Because
great sentence. Yeah,
because it's like just because they're successful and their titles, they have some really good successful titles, doesn't mean that they're not an independent publisher, and it doesn't mean that a title that's from Image isn't an independent title, because Image does so much to reinvest in their artists and in the talent, because the Image knows it was founded by people who know that it wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for these creators and if it wasn't for these artists and these authors. And so I just feel like that is still, even if they're successful, I feel like that is still present in Image Comics. And that's where I'm coming from with that.
Well, and I saw somebody in the chat was saying, Hulknuts was saying they're going to have Spawn 300 soon. And he's, I think, implying that the longevity does not allow them to be called indie. And I don't know that there's any longevity element, or like you're saying, a success element that makes something indie. I think that for me, it would probably be how many comics are they producing each month? How many titles do they have on the shelves at any given time? How many copies of those issues? For me, it's got to be a money numbers side. It can't be just, they've got a certain amount of time on the shelves. And you mentioned the creator-owned kind of side to it, the fact that they it started as this whole creator-owned thing, and they sort of still obviously are a big part of that. And for me, that feels indie to me in the same way that in the old days, the Zoetrope days of filmmaking, when it was the Lucas and the Coppola guys, these guys that were just basically making movies wherever they could, scrounging together whatever money they could, and they were starting to get hot. But like they were making huge hits. Star Wars comes out of this, and American Graffiti comes out of this, and and eventually you get to The Godfather or whatever. But like they felt like they were living an independent life, and I don't know at what point they became full stream guys. And obviously Godfather and Star Wars were big enough hits that happened, and Image has had their big hits, their Spawns and whatever. But it seems like the mentality of the company and the things that they go out to try to create are so dramatically different than the big two. It separates them.
Well, I also feel like Spawn's it's really hard to bring up Spawn though, because it is Todd McFarlane still. And he was so embedded in creating and with other publishers for so long that you can look at Spawn and yes, it's Image, but it's mostly Todd.
Yes, I get what you're saying. DS Comics says, I feel that there are three categories: Marvel, DC, and indie, which is all the rest. So I am going to disagree with all of you and say that,
well, it seems like the chat is with you.
I feel that there are two distinctions that I feel oftentimes get blurred: creator-owned and independent. I feel like, to me, Vertigo and Image and even something like Aftershock or Oni isn't really indie to me. because if you can get your book published by Image, you don't have to apply to Diamond. You don't have to put, you don't have to work with a printer. You don't have to, do all these things that a true independent book would have to do.
But I mean, how complicated is it to do something like apply to Diamond and get something published? Like, it is something that most people could do. So I don't think that Image in and of itself is what the thing that's making it possible for them, if that makes sense. Like,
I mean, I tried to do it, and it is wildly difficult.
Okay, I believe you. I've never tried. So
I mean, and maybe I'm just being like too snobbish about it or whatever, or too much of a stickler. But I feel like, I love creator-owned stuff. I oftentimes prefer it to Marvel and DC, and I'm not trying to knock Image for what they're doing, or trying to knock any other publisher for what they're doing, or take them down a peg and say like they're just like the rest. But for me to consider it being like indie, like you have to work a little harder to get that distinction from me.
Sure. You have to suffer more.
Yeah, you have to blood, sweat, and tears.
Well, I think you could and I always, when I hear indie, I always go to, because in film school that was like a big debate, and Miramax was really big when I was in film school. Not to bring up Weinstein and any of that kind of stuff, but the idea that like they could be basically under the same roof as Disney, because Disney owned Miramax at the time, but they were considered to be this huge independent studio because they were putting out all those early Tarantino movies. They were winning all these Oscars with these kind of indie films, but they were funded by Disney. They had a Disney backing, and that's my situation when I think of Vertigo in some ways, because they have that DC umbrella, right? There's that covers a lot of checks that might not otherwise get covered at a typical indie.
Right. Tim Meyer said, "But Alec, do they have to answer editors with Image?" I would believe to a point they have editors listed in the credits of Image books. So I don't know if they have their own editors or if Image makes them have editors. I know everyone is super sick probably of hearing me talk about this book, but
I'm not familiar with this. So
this to me is a true independent book because it is Abstract Studios, Terry Moore's own company. He writes it, he draws it. His wife is the editor, and he publishes it himself. And like obviously it's a much more successful. Bone is another example of cartoon books. Like he put that out himself. To me, that's like what it takes to be an independent book in my mind. But
does the presence of an editor really, is that, I mean, I know it's not like the one thing, but like all I can think of is like, well, is the Bags and Boards show not independent because we have Slav? No, like not my wife.
I think
he's editing it, and like I think that there's value in having editors because there's it's people who help you platform it to get to the right hands or to help you tweak things or I guess it's like how heavy is the hand of the editor is the question.
Right. And I don't think to me it's the editor. It's more so the foundation that is already built by having the publisher.
Hmm.
Well, that's interesting, but
it's certainly not easy.
I feel like it basically relegates very few people to indie. It makes it an incredibly narrow margin. I think that because the comic book industry is what it is right now, with as far as I understand the pie, it's these two huge slices, and then this slice that's everybody else.
Sure.
I kind of feel like it's hard to imagine indie as being an even smaller piece of that.
Yeah, and again, maybe I'm being too much of a stickler and too much of a going back to my snobbish college self of like, oh, I only read zines. But I was never like that. I'm
I
exaggerating
don't believe
myself.
you.
Well,
It's okay to do that. It's okay.
No, I did go to art school, so a lot of that rubbed off on me.
Sure.
I don't know. I think it's a lot of gray area for me, for sure. Like it's not so distinct as just like yes or no, and that's why I tried use the distinction of like creator owned versus independent.
Topic, I think. And Jeffrey says Image is well known among like real comic book fans, but outside of that, how well is it known? I remember when my wife and I were watching. It was some documentary on comic books, and I can't remember who organized it, but it was. So I'm blanking on most of the basics of it. But one of the episodes was just on Image and how Image happened, and the birth of the comic company and what happened to it, and what it went through. And it was. And I've collected my whole life, and I've shared my joy with my wife as much as she's willing to suffer through that. But it was very eye-opening to her. And she was like, I never even heard of this company. I've heard, she's like, some of this is visually, I've seen maybe the face of Spawn before or whatever. But for her, it was a whole new layer of understanding. And maybe his point is that because it's so unknown to the large portion of people, that would qualify it as being less than one of those big publishers.
And Eryn, you should read this.
Okay, I'll read it.
Ryan's reading it right now, so you can talk to him about
good. Ryan and I have really similar. It's funny because like Ryan and I, we either love the same thing the exact same way, or we hate something that the other person loves in the opposite way. So he'll be like, "Oh, I really like Sons of Anarchy," and I'm like, "Interesting. That show makes me want to die." And then we'll both talk about like Twin Peaks, and we're like, "Oh my god, that show's so like," and we'll just talk about it forever. But like, yeah, it's like. So we'll see. Maybe we'll have another.
That's how I knew you'd be a good match for our show, because I love Ryan's sensibilities, so I knew you'd be a good fit.
And for all I know, he's hating it so far. So I've been talking about it so much that he's like, I should give that a shot. So anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Decaf Raven says, how much do you think Marvel and DC might fudge the numbers so that Image continues to seem indie, though? Image will never equal the sales of the big two with tactics if they use them like that.
I think the numbers are calculated by Diamond. So, I mean, they certainly fudged numbers by selling 1 million variants.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like if you have to buy 100 just to get one.
Yeah, going back to the question
the numbers are based on what is sold, but not be based on what is sold to the LCSs, but it's not based on what is sold off the shelf. It's just based on what the LCS is stuck with.
Yeah, the shop I used to work at, which was not really a comic shop, but we sold comics.
Does that make sense?
Yes. We would have monthly returns where you just tear the covers off and ship them back, and they'd get some sort of return, I guess. I don't know how that works.
You would tear the covers off?
Yeah, you just ship back the covers to say, like, we haven't sold this book, and then you throw the rest out.
Oh.
I know, it's heartbreaking.
I don't know.
But it was it was just Marvel and DC stuff, because they would overorder them.
Yeah.
To go back to a second about the idea of like, is Image well known? I mean, I think with stuff like The Walking Dead, and you brought up Saga, which is, if you go on Amazon, I can almost guarantee it's probably the #1 graphic novel or trade paperback on the list right now. So I feel like maybe it's not like a household name like Marvel or DC, but I think that more people probably know it than.
It's probably like third in line.
Oh, it's definitely third.
Yeah. I mean, it's even before. I know Vertigo's basically DC, but it's like even now, because Vertigo, it's just different.
Yeah, Vertigo is not what it once was.
In the 90s, Vertigo would have been probably a bigger name potentially.
Yeah, with Sandman and Preacher.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know people who don't even know Walking Dead is based on a comic. Jeffrey Comic-Con says, yeah, it's a good point.
Well, I mean, the show is very, very loosely based on the comic. So it's basically not a comic. Well, and Image has so many titles though. Like, just because they have like 5 kind of big ones doesn't mean that they don't have 100 that aren't.
Yeah, and there's like 100 new ones every month that never come out within issue 3.
Right.
Well, and Spawn is hitting 300 and is a big deal and still really, really popular. But at the same time, my guy Eric Larson, he's still pumping out Savage Dragon, and nobody's talking about that.
Yeah.
You know, he started the same time with Spawn.
Yeah.
And he's still running that, and he's doing it all himself. He's not pawning it off on somebody else.
That's true. That's a good example. He's always like in close proximity to Mignola at conventions. Yeah. Whenever we go, like it's like Larson's table's like within like 3 or 4 tables of Mignola. It feels like so we always get to.
I love that guy, man. He's awesome.
And but then he goes and like draws these like really weird covers that like, what are you doing, man?
Which cover is this?
Oh, you haven't seen the X-rated cover?
Oh, he's got a couple.
Savage Dragon?
Yeah, he's got a couple.
I have a sealed bag version.
Yeah. It's just like
that book.
Was this your plan all along?
I think Hulk Nuts or Decaf Raymond sent me a screenshot just so that I knew what was on the inside so that I didn't actually have to break the seal and look.
Yeah. Tom bought like 3 just so that we could open one.
Yeah.
And then I had some friends over for PAX. I have gamer friends fly up so we can go do PAX together. I think there's cat hair flying around. I hope you guys can see it because there's literally like cat hair flying around right now. But they came over and like I don't think they really knew like how into comics we were and like how into like comics I was, and they were like, "What do you do?" And I'm like, "Oh, let me show you this." And I'm like, this is comic here today. And I'm like, gave him like some culture shock. And like,
right.
Like this exists.
So Eryn, I know you can't see the chat. Bueller just came in and said, "Hey Eryn, when do I get to come hang out with the crew?"
When do you get to come hang out with the crew? I think you're in Portland, yeah? Aren't we trying to go to the one in February, WizardCon?
Well, and you guys were joking on the live stream yesterday that Bueller's got to come and start stuffing bags and boards, and when he comes out, he's going to get put to work.
I mean, every time someone comes out to visit me, I'm like, you need to assemble boxes, or you need a bag and board, and I'll put.
I would be so pumped to just come and do that one round.
Yeah.
That's what I do at home anyway, so might as well hang out with some cool people and do it. Hey, Reggie Simmons just entered the chat. What's up, brother?
Wow, Reggie Bueller. I guess they must have finished with JD. I saw the beginning of JD's live stream for tonight, really discussing some really great things on these channels and where they're going and what people are trying to do in the new year. And I really want to catch the end of it because it seemed like a really interesting debate. And one fact right off the bat, I was totally blown away by because I knew one element, which was that there was 2 days separating the Tom's first comic book video and Bueller's first comic book video. 2 days separated those. And then 2 more days later, Reggie had his first comic book video.
Really?
So within 4 days, all of these guys started this this amazing sort of growth in this area.
In the water?
Yeah, right? And it was all West Coast, right? You had Washington, you had Oregon, and you had
that's California. Why it took so long to get over to me.
Yeah. We were in phase 2.
So
do we want to run through what we've got coming up next week here?
Yeah, really quickly. I was hoping he would be in the chat, but I got an AOK from Bake the Snake today, and I just ripped it open, and I feel badly that I didn't open it on air, but he sent me this, which is a Brubaker and Phillips hardcover.
They had that in my shop today, although I think it was a soft cover, I thought, but maybe I'm wrong.
And I was like, oh, cool, I don't own this yet. And then I realized it is signed by Ed Brubaker.
Ooh.
Which is awesome. And it has a little card that's also signed inside and a COA.
Wow.
And that knocked my socks off.
That's cool, Bake.
If you're watching the replay, thank you very much. I really, really enjoy this. I can't wait to read it. and I wish there was a Mylar that was big enough to fit this in.
So Eryn, what's Tom got coming up on his channel this next week? Anything we should be looking for?
Well, you know what he's going to be doing tonight? He's probably like, I swear, if I just like look, he's probably like standing in like the kitchen, which is like to the left of me, just like waiting for me to be done so we can start doing the top 10 list, I'm sure. Like, it's just happening.
So you're saying we should extend
this like, yeah, another half an hour. Let's just
really stress him out.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's probably the next thing. We tape the videos a little bit out just to give us some time. That way we can release stuff sometimes during holiday weeks if we can. But and I'm not in anything, so I don't care. I'm just kidding.
Well, my favorite, I mean, I don't want to be contrarian because I know that Tom's got some really great informational stuff going on right now, but my favorite stuff on his channel has always been the breakdown videos. Yeah. When you guys did Constantine, I was so into it. And if you guys haven't watched it, go cruise Comic Tom's breakdown videos, and there's a set on Constantine that Eryn was doing, and Ryan, and you and Ryan were running a lot of those episodes. It was great. And so I'm sure there's an Infinity Wars breakdown coming here soon too.
Yeah. No, I know that's coming up. I think that's on Sundays usually. But yeah, the Constantine was super fun, and I'd like to do more breakdowns, but I feel like there's a point where there's too much breakdowns. Like if they do Infinity Gauntlet and then we're doing Constantine, like it's just too much. And I wanted to do Constantine because like when I was introduced to the community, like I just wanted to bring a part of me, because like the part of me that's into comics is into that type of storytelling. Like I'm not super into the superhero stuff. Like I'll dabble, but it's not where my focus is when it comes to comics. Like the comic that made me love comics was Sandman. Like it's like, you know, it wasn't Saga. No, it was Sandman. But then it was immediately followed up by Watchmen. So it's like I had like a couple of flavors. So it was like a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And so for me,
that Constantine breakdown was great. And I'm not a huge Constantine. I didn't know much about the character. I went out and grabbed the big graphic novel version that I found, and I've read the whole thing since, not just that one story, because you guys did a great job.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a really, really good story, and he's amazing. Yeah, he's amazing. And this is that was the Garth Ennis storyline, I think. So, and I love him, so it's perfect. It was perfect for me.
Now, Alec, you've been doing some videos lately. I know you've done your live chats where it's just people have been jumping on with you. Those have been fantastic. You got an insane AOK that people should go and check out. You got Watson.
I got Watson. Yes, I'm still.
It's a verb now for forever. You have been Watson.
I'm still sorting through the Watsoning, and I put little stickers to signify every Watson book in my collection.
What is it, like a little, just a blue dot somewhere?
Yeah, it's just like a yellow dot sticker. But because like, you know, he sent me a copy of X-Men 244 because, you know, Jubilee.
Yep, she's your girl.
It's my third copy, and I don't want to like get mixed up which one he sent me for you know, sentimental
reasons. Just slab them all, and you'll know that the highest grade one is his.
Yeah, right. The race is coming to a head. So I'll give you a quick update on that. My CBCS books are finally in grading, and they have been in that status.
Only took 6 months.
Yeah, it's been literally 5 months, almost 5.5, and but they've been in grading for a week now. So I don't know at what. Usually they'll go from like grading to shipped very quickly. Not that it happens very quickly, but like all of a sudden it'll be shipped. So who knows when that's happening. My CGC order went from scheduled to be grading to graded in 2 days. So today it flipped to graded. So that's probably going to be shipped any moment. So it's really going to be a photo finish, I think.
Man, this is going to be exciting.
Isn't it so stressful that CGC stuff charges from like Florida?
Yeah.
It always stresses me out. The last time I went to a con and I did CGC, I got like a charge on my card like 3 days later from Florida, and I'm like, that's fraudulent. There's no way. And I almost like filed a fraud claim on my own comic book order. Like that would have sucked because like it was a big order because like you save stuff up all year and then
Right.
we send it out and I was like, oh no.
My CBCS order is all personal collection stuff, so the grades on those aren't as important. But my CGC order, I'm hoping for 9/8 down the line.
Is that for your selling? Do you sell your CGC?
This round I submitted for selling. Yes, I have not before, so this is gonna be my first attempt. So hope I didn't boff it.
I mean, there's a video. There's a Comic Con video on that about.
Yeah.
Comic-Holics. The way you want it, just crack it and send it back. Because
Comic-Holics just ran into the same issue. I don't know if you guys watched their channel, but they submitted a book and forgot to look at the back cover before they sent it in. And I won't spoil anything more than that, but it was a disappointment.
And I've seen some Instagram photos lately where somebody's like, "This got a 9/8, but look at it; it's clearly not." So there's been a lot of that,
and vice versa, where it's like. Speaking of breakdowns, and Ryan, he's trying to convince me to do a breakdown of Stranger in Paradise, which I probably will do at some point, but with Christmas coming up, this next week is going to be tough. I'm trying to convince Donatos to do a live auction with me, and Comic Books NYC might get in on that. So if I can make that happen, that's going to be soon.
Yeah, I'm happy to help out if you want.
Other than that, I don't know. Listen to the First Issue Club podcast and check out Sky Tigers, who just came out with a new album on Bandcamp.
So for my channel, obviously we have Saturday Morning Comics with me and the girls. Most likely this will be the one we do, and then we take a week off for the holidays because we're going to be traveling a little bit, and then we'll probably do when we get back, that first week in January, we'll do one as well. So that's our next big thing. For next week's book club,
yeah, a lot of people asking in the chat. They're saying, "Is anything even coming out?" And
there's not a lot. And we were not really wowed by X-Force or Superior Spider-Man, which are kind of like the only options that we were really considering. And we both kind of felt like we wanted to do some kind of a year-end review instead. So we are going to have no guest next week unless we change our mind. And it'll be on Alex's channel. And we'll do a little year-end review, and you'll have to sort of tune in to see what form that will take. It'll be something kind of
we don't know yet.
Yeah, no, hey, don't ruin it, Alex.
Whoops.
Yeah, so that's what we'll be doing next week on our show for next week, and then the week after that, we've got a very possible, hopefully exciting guest because we're looking at the first issue of Conan the Barbarian. Jason Aaron's new Conan storyline comes out. Is it the second? No, second. I think it's the 2nd of January.
Yes.
Okay, and we've got a potentially very big guest for that one that we will announce when we get a little closer. But we're looking forward to that Jason Aaron Conan, because I'm a big Jason Aaron fan, and I haven't read Conan in a very long time. I'm probably saying it more like Conan O'Brien, not Conan.
Tim Meyer.
Isn't that Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
His documentary is on Netflix right now.
Yeah.
One from the weightlifting. So
yeah.
Warmed up.
But
Tim Meyer said,
"Where we land?" I used to love reading Conan the Barbarian comic books. They were always really like the hottest ladies and the most like graphic violence. As a kid, it was like, this is so not appropriate.
Definitely in the era of like dramatic, like, well, okay. I feel like every like season of comics like has its own, or every like era of comics has its own like dramatic thing that they do. But like that was like the bubbly, like,
yeah,
muscle man, tiny waist kind of era.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Tim Meyer said, "Where'd we land on the debate?" I don't know if we have ever really, besides the couple where we've all kind of like agreed. Yeah, I think we
all sort of agree that they are not typical of the independent market, but that they're also definitely not typical of the mainstream, what DC and Marvel are doing. And so that it does make a gray area, which is perfect for debate.
Agree to disagree, we all say. But that's the cool thing about a debate is that you're not always supposed to change it, your minds or anything. It's just, hey, this is my perspective on it. So
yeah, and we're not going to solve this problem in our chat with 20 people.
yeah.
This is not the UN. Well, so yeah, thank you everybody for coming by and for enjoying the chat, and please hit the like button and leave a comment. We would love to hear from you about how you thought about this particular issue or what you think about Image. Huge thanks to Eryn for doing this. We really appreciate you breaking the gender barrier, the issue 2 barrier for us, the day of the
Thursday
week barrier for us.
You guys have had a lady on. You guys had Ryan here. This is thing.
Wow.
I hope he's watching.
He's not.
Man.
He never watches.
I've been friends with Ryan for too long. So
I'm joking with Ryan all the time about I'm just waiting for the moment when somebody like Bueller says, hey, John, we really want to have your daughter on our show. We don't want to have you on our show.
Oh, no. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. I know Tom was super pumped for me. Ryan was super pumped for me. They're like, John's so much fun to do videos with. You're going to have a great time. And
yeah, and I'm there too.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Oh, well, it's like Tom was like, look, it's you doing you. Like, you can go and do something and be Eryn, and it's not just about the Bags and Boards show. It can also, you can just be yourself somewhere. So
well, that's the fun of comics. I feel like you can have your entry point, and Alec has his entry point, and I have mine, and then we can all find common ground in this. It's the same thing I get frustrated about when people are like, oh, I don't like books. It's like, how do you not like books? Do you like horror movies? Sure. Do you not? You don't have to like romantic comedies to say you hate movies. Like there's so much here for everybody to find something they enjoy, and then to find that common ground is just so awesome.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think if you say like you hate something universally, it's just like, even if you say I hate romantic comedies, like, well, there's some that could be classified as romantic comedies that I probably enjoy.
Right. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Oh, Bueller says Kate and Charlie are taking over the comic world. He knows it. They're going to be on your show soon enough, I'm sure, Bueller. Thank you, everybody, for coming by, and have a great weekend. And I'll see you hopefully on Saturday for Saturday Morning Comics.
Thank you.